Chair calls C.J. Grisham. I have you registered as C.J. Grisham, testifying on behalf of yourself and against the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
go ahead.
And hello to my awesome Representative Hicklin. You represent us well, ma'am. My name is C.J. Grisham. I'm here in opposition to SB 15 on my own behalf because as a civil rights attorney at the website isuebadcops.com. SB 15 is perhaps one of the most dangerous bills I've seen since I began coming to the Capitol. SB 15 should be named the Protect Bad Cops and Let the People Eat Cake Act. I feel like this body needs to be reminded that Article 1, Section 2 of our Constitution says that all political power is inherent in the people and that all governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit, not the benefit of protecting bad cops, the people's benefit. Mr. Chairman is correct. There is currently no consistency regarding law enforcement records. That's because some departments believe in transparency and some don't. Unfortunately, most don't, in my experience. It's that we investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing mentality. SB 15 creates a department file where any file maintained by a law enforcement agency is protected from release that includes findings of no misconduct. Here's the issue that I have. Because, Mr. Chair, you correctly laid out the bill and said that I can get this information through discovery, right? But guess what that means? That means that someone who's been wronged, before they file a lawsuit, they're not going to know whether they have standing or not. And they're going to have to hire and pay an attorney to get information that they should be able to just get. A good police officer isn't afraid of having unfounded complaints released. It actually makes them look good that they've got unfounded complaints. A bad police officer does care. And I'll tell you why, because there's something called Monell liability, and I don't know how many people here are attorneys, but in order for me to sue under Monell liability, I have to be able to prove a practice, policy, or procedure that a city or an entity has in place that caused or supported or facilitated that officer's or that public official's behavior. I can't do that. If I can't go and I'm getting ready to file my lawsuit, but what I do my due process, because I'm a retired federal agent. I'm in law enforcement. I'm retired law enforcement. There's my TCOL card, there's my retired law enforcement card, there's my old badge, my retired badge. It means nothing. It's just a retired badge. So I don't hate cops. I do hate bad cops. With a passion, I hate bad cops. And I represent a lot of good cops. The problem here is when I go to file a case against a law enforcement officer, I'm like, ooh, I get to sue another cop. I do my due diligence first. I file an open records request. I try to find out what information can I have. Has that officer been accused of the same thing before? Because if a police department is saying unfounded, which is what is happening in the cases that I'm filing, and then I file my civil lawsuit, and I find out that the city has actually let this guy off previously and said, oh, there was no misconduct, and yet I get my clients a nice, healthy paycheck because he is doing that. And it just so happens that my client was able to afford an attorney. This is a bad bill. It protects bad cops. I ask you to vote against it.
So you think that any individual out here in the public can just file unlimited, unsubstantiated, unfounded complaints?
No,
You don't believe that that's going to be used against these cops when they go to court on other cases?
Well, it sounds like the problem
that
is
attorneys will not exploit that?
Yeah, it sounds like that the problem is malicious complaining and filing of false reports. Why don't we go after the people filing false reports? That's the problem. But is that a possibility that people are going to maliciously file these complaints? Look, I know for a fact, even if it's a legitimate arrest, because I have people come to me all the time. They're like, hey, I was arrested, but they didn't read my Miranda rights, so my rights were violated. I want to sue, right? Sorry, can't do that. Your rights weren't violated. And I understand that there are a lot of people who just don't understand how police work works. And so they think their rights are being violated. They file a complaint. And guess what? That complaint's going to be unsubstantiated. Now, if it's done maliciously, I think that there are ways that both law enforcement and the legislature has already put in place about filing false official reports. You can get them for retaliation. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we can go after. But what we're doing is we're saying, you, the public, because there are some people out there that file frivolous lawsuits, you, the public, don't deserve to know that this officer's been accused of this before. And, you know, it's not until the fourth or fifth time, or sometimes maybe just the second time, that the officer gets caught. And we need to know how many times, as attorneys and as plaintiffs, how many times did the city allow this to happen? Because am I just going to sue the officer, or am I going to sue the city who keeps condoning this behavior by finding that behavior perfectly legitimate and the officer did no wrongdoing? So that's the problem that I see from our angle. I think the best way to fix it, because I know everyone's asking, well, what would you do to fix this bill? Like, how could I support this bill? Very simple. Add something in there that allows for a third party, not the police department itself, not the internal affairs, nobody associated with that, some third party, whether it's a committee of citizens, that they look at the complaints. And that committee of citizens needs to include law enforcement, because they're going to have to explain law enforcement strategies and tactics and all that, because, again, let's say the complaint is he didn't read me my Miranda rights. Well, that's because he didn't interrogate you and you weren't in custody. Didn't have to. You know, you'd have a police officer or several police officers on this committee. So I think that what needs to be fixed is, if anything, I think this bill's trash. It just needs to go away because it protects bad cops. But if you're asking me, CJ, how can we fix it? Make police complaints subject to third-party review. And I don't mean another just law enforcement agency, because they're going to protect each other. I'm talking about some kind of a committee or agency or something.
So you think other cops are just going to protect bad cops?
I see it every day. I don't think, I know.
Well, I don't think that. I think the vast majority of cops are good, and that they are like you and I. They despise bad cops. My brother's a law enforcement officer. But anybody got any other questions?
Well, just yesterday, Judge, sorry, I'm used to being in court. Mr. Chair, I mean, yesterday I had 2 cops come to me through a third party because they were afraid to talk to me, because they wanted to go after bad cops and what their supervisors were ordering them to do. I know there are good cops out there, and I want to protect them. What I don't want to do is protect the bad ones, and that's what this does, because it's just a blanket, oh, it was unfounded. But how do we know this isn't a pattern or practice?
Okay. Chair recognizes Representative Hicklin.
Thank you. Mr. Grisham, so in the scenario that you presented of, going to see a history of unfounded complaints that then might together look different, why would that not be provided through discovery? Like, could you not get those records and discovery of a case?
That's a great question. And as I said at the beginning, yes, I can. But that's me as an attorney. They're having to hire me, and now they're having to pay me to draft all these documents, to get all this discovery, to go through discovery, then explain the discovery, whereas they can just pay me to do an open records request and do all that. Like I said I mentioned this in the Senate, that there are many departments out there, and they're usually the smaller departments, out in West and East Texas that I've dealt with, where I go to a department and I say, hey, I've got a client that said they filed a complete police report or a complaint against this officer, and it sounds like a legitimate complaint. Can I get the record of that? Oh, well, we dropped it because he retired, or he resigned. And so a lot of these departments, not the big cities, because I know, I think Dallas was in here testifying in the Senate bill last month, I think it was SB 14 last month, that they have a process that it doesn't matter if the officer leaves or retires or quits or whatever, they still complete the investigation. The reality is, a lot of these smaller departments don't. When they give that officer a chance, you can leave or we're gonna investigate you. Well, guess what? Now I don't even get to see that, because it just gets stopped, or in other words, unfounded. And this is reality. I'm not making this stuff up. These are the cases that I personally take, where they're dropping investigations and not even going through with them, because the officer would prefer, oh crap, I'm in trouble, so I'm just gonna quit. And then he moves on to the next department to become a problem.
Thank
Or
you.
she, excuse me.
Thank you.
I need to show Representative Louderback present.
And that's the best sheriff in Texas right there too.
Chair recognizes Representative McLaughlin.
So first of all, I agree with you, we need to be transparent and so forth. But secondly, though, just like you said, there's bad cops out there, there's bad lawyers that use this to taint an officer that shouldn't be tainted. So they go and get a complaint that an officer has had unsubstantiated claims, or they don't prove to be there. But that lawyer doesn't paint it that way. He paints this guy as a villain, and they've ruined that guy's life before he gets there. And once the genie's out of the box, there's no putting it out of the bottle. There's no putting it back in the bottle to justify this deal. We do need to be transparent, but at the same token, if we go after that person for filing that malicious or false claim, then we're, here again, it comes back, it's gonna be tainted that the officers are going after this individual because he stood up. And that's the problem that we have. And I saw it over and over and over since Uvalde, and in other instances there, officers that did try to do the right thing, and there are officers that didn't, they're constantly crucified for what they did. And that's not right. I mean, these people put their lives on the line for us every day. And I'm all about transparency, and we should be. And if there's a serious incident, we need to be transparent on it. But at the same token, we have to protect these guys to some degree.
And I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to blow your mind, Representative. Most attorneys suck. I'll just say that. As an attorney. That's why I became an attorney late in life, because it's about money. It's not about justice. It's not about doing the right thing. And sometimes just because you're paid to make a cop look bad, you shouldn't be doing that. Or even just because you're paid to make a defendant look bad, you shouldn't be doing that. What I will say is, and I wish all attorneys were the way that I carry myself, and why I decided to become an attorney late in life with ethics. I don't sue any cop that I haven't completely investigated, and I make sure that that guy is a bad apple and needs to be sued. But the cases that I take because no other attorney will take them. These are cases of small infractions. A guy thrown into a police car for 7 minutes for no reason, just because the cop didn't like him, right? And no attorney is going to take that, because what's 7 minutes in a police car? Even though your rights are violated, your First Amendment and your Fourth Amendment rights are violated, they had no reason to toss you into that police car. No attorney is going to take a case where I was only stuck in a police car for 7 minutes. That's what I do. Or I can't afford to have a good attorney. That's what I do, because my job is to get rid of the bad cops, because that takes care of the good cops. When the bad ones are getting the good ones hurt. And so my job is to weed that out. But this bill makes it harder for me to weed out those bad cops because it protects them. And I'm literally on their side. I'm your best friend if you're a good cop, but I am your worst enemy if you're violating people's rights.
Chair recognizes Representative Louderback.
Hey, CJ.
Sheriff, how are you? Or Representative, which do you
Good.
prefer?
They both work.
All right.
So we've known each other quite some time, have we not?
Yes, sir.
So I think what this bill is trying to do is simply extend the same protections that civil service has already, and it will actually benefit the sheriff's world immensely. And your comment about the industry not able to police itself or not wanting to police itself is simply wrong. We simply, I have never, in many of my cohorts, we're valiantly trying to clean the industry up at all times. And it's difficult, it's a challenge. There's 2,800 agencies in this state. So it's a huge number. We're faced with systemic losses of personnel constantly. But it doesn't mean that a sheriff or police chief doesn't know exactly what's going on. And so these protections that we're asking for in this bill are simply already present in our state. Already certain numbers of law enforcement have this protection. So what we're simply saying is we want to extend it and make it consistent everywhere. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'll tell you that my opposition to this bill is hypocritical as an attorney, because, for example, and I talk about this openly, I'm on probation, a probationary status. I have been since I became an attorney 3 years ago. It doesn't stop me from doing anything, and the reasoning isn't because I do something wrong in the courtroom, it's my mouth. But
I can understand that.
Yes, if someone comes in and wants to say, hey, why is CJ on probation? Guess what? Those records are protected. Now, I don't care. I'll show them to them. I'll give them everything they want to see. That's me personally, because I believe in transparency. But I'm protected by the same law that this bill, or the same sort of rules that this bill would bring in. But I would actually support a bill that reverses it for attorneys. All the bar complaints I've had, they're all unsubstantiated. I would love for everybody to see those, because of how stupid and, I apologize for using that word, but how obnoxious the complaints are. And I know law enforcement goes through the same thing. So I get it, and I do speak from a position of hypocrisy, because I'm currently protected. But anybody that wants to see my disciplinary records, I'll gladly turn them over. I just want transparency on any public official. And I know I'm not a public official, but attorneys do the public's work. So, but yes, I agree with you, Sheriff. I understand this is difficult. That's why I think that instead of just defeating it, and I would hope that you could admit that there are departments out there that do protect bad cops. There are not many, but there are institutions out there, and it's really in these smaller departments where everybody's buddy-buddy with each other. and these smaller counties even. I don't even think I know of a bad sheriff's department. So the sheriffs I don't even have complaints usually against. But it's these smaller departments, and that's where I think this bill is really doing harm. And I think a separate committee or a third party that includes law enforcement on this committee, and it can even be in a majority law enforcement, that's who investigates wrongdoing, not the agency itself. I mean, if someone, really quick and I'll shut up. I had someone ask me on Twitter, I need to know who your supervisor is. So I gave him my cell phone number because I work for myself. So they called me and they said, hey, CJ's doing this, 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 and this, and this. And I said, oh, that's terrible, but do you have a problem? Let me look into it. Yeah, he's good. And I investigated myself and found that that person's complaint against me to my supervisor, who was me, was unfounded. So.
TCOPS plays a role in this too, but thank you for your testimony.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative DeRacio.
Appreciate you coming and testifying. And, we definitely want transparency in the process. And we definitely want justice to be done. But I'm also in favor of protecting the rights of the police officer until a thorough investigation is done.
Amen.
And then one of the things that you said in the testimony was about supervisors squelching a police officer or letting him know that, he's being investigated, and the police officer quits on his own fruition, using pressure to have him resign his position. Whenever we had a dispute on a transaction, and it was between two powerful opponents, to put something like this to a committee and the community and things of that nature, our citizenry is very astute from what I've seen, and they vote right every time. But in matters of legal, police affairs, and what some bad actor in the public is trying to do to a police officer and undermine the integrity of an individual because they're angry at him for giving him a ticket or something he justly deserved, and then to open up these records in order to accuse him, I have a hard time with that. But on some of these disputes that we have to deal with, my team would have to choose, on something like this, our team would choose a police chief or a police officer from a completely different district, and the other police officer would choose, or whoever they were, whatever department it was, they would choose another individual from a completely other district. Those two people that were chosen, they would come together and they would choose a district or a police officer to investigate. Why aren't we doing something like that here?
Well, I think we could. I will admit I'm probably a little bit cynical because of the kinds of cases that I take. But, the good thing is what this bill will do is make me more money, because now people will, instead of just paying me $250 to write a open records request and going over the records that way, they're going to have to hire me for a full-on case. I don't want to disparage the entire system, because as Sheriff Louderback, or Representative Louderback said, and also the chair, most police officers are good cops. But what this does is it protects that minority of bad cops that affect the most people. I mean, they're the ones that not only get their fellow cops killed, but citizens on the side of the road, or in a parking lot, but also their fellow officers, because the bad officers create resentment in the public. And that resentment translates to bad opinions towards law enforcement. Then you've automatically got that, when they come together, the head beating, and then so the officer, the bad officer, will do something worse to make it worse, and then you get more resentment. It's this vicious cycle. And I think the best infectant to that is just transparency. And while I would benefit from this bill passing as an attorney, because if I don't have access to those records, the only thing I can do is sue to find out if there's a case. I just don't think that's good public policy that, well, we're going to pass this, and you know what, if you don't like it, just hire an attorney, just sue, and you'll get it in discovery. Our courts are so backed up as it is. now we've got to go through all that. I mean, it takes a lot of money and time to write a complaint and to do the investigation and get the discovery. Discovery is the worst part of any case. So that's all I'll say to that. That's all I'll say to that, I guess.
I appreciate it. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
All right, members, any other questions? All righty. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.